Hello and welcome to Sovereign AF. I am your host, Shakti Rios, and this podcast is dedicated to the conversation between healthy lifestyle and sovereign living. This means you're going to get access to all my very best life tips, tricks, hacks, and revelations when it comes to living a truly holistically well life. And it also means you're going to get all of my truther, alternative narrative news, information that I believe is absolutely relevant to us living our highest expression of reality. So stay tuned, buckle up, and let's get on with living our healthy and sovereign lives. Hello and welcome back. Welcome to episode 2. So if you are part of Patreon, you are actually listening to this episode very much in advance before it goes onto the site and becomes public. And so this is going to be a little bit of an update. There's been some gap between my previous episode and this episode. And there's a reason for that. And so I kind of want to talk about that. So I have received a lot of news in a really short period of time. And for those of you who follow me on social media and read my blog on my site, then you already know that I found out I'm pregnant, which was a huge surprise. It was not planned and it was not, organized in any way. So that was just recent in the past 2.5 weeks that we know. And what's happened as a result of that, though, has been a lot of symptoms, a lot of exhaustion, sickness, not really being able to work at all for long periods of time. Sitting in front of my computer screen made me nauseated, that type of stuff. It's been really rough. So I had to take a pause. And one of the things that I took a pause on was my weekly Friday YouTube show called Fireside Friday. And for those of you who are not familiar with that show, it was a show that I produced from March to September, every Friday. At first it was a couple times a week, and then it turned into once a week. And the point of the show was to bring some alternative narrative news to the attention of the general public and to make some important connections I thought were important to the public. And some people would deem that, conspiracy theorist talk, which is completely fine. To me, it's just alternative news. It's other things that the media, mainstream media, is not showing us and would rather we not see. And so I took it upon myself to create a series where I talked about that. Now, creating that show is extremely time consuming, but not just creating it, but performing it for over an hour because the shows were that long. I did not have the energy to do that. I could barely show up for my fitness clients and, do the work that I was doing in those communities, and I didn't. That was my priority. So what I have done instead is all of the media that would go on that show is available on Patreon. I have continued to upload documents, videos, podcast episodes like this one. I'm recording more meditations now. All of that stuff is still going to be on Patreon. So if you haven't joined our Patreon community, go ahead and do that. You can find the link to that directly on my site, just shaktireos.com. There's a tab that says join the Patreon, become a patron. And then you can have access to all the same information that I would be sharing on that show. It's just simply a lot easier for me to share quickly into Patreon and just share a blurb about my thoughts on the thing than it is to compile a show right now. I do not have the energy or the bandwidth to do that and be a mom and be pregnant and deal with my business and all the other things. So I am being very mindful of my energy. And as a result, that's where you can find that. I also, you probably noticed if you were on Patreon, did not do a show on this past moon. I usually do a new moon and full moon report, and I didn't do one because, again, I was just completely wiped out energetically. But moving forward, I am doing those shows. So again, if you join Patreon, you'll have access to that. Patreon's structure has changed a bit. It is now, open to whatever you'd like to pledge monthly. So there's no tiers. It's just whatever you would like to pledge. If you're already a patron, thank you. And your pledge does not change. It's just for anybody who's coming in new for them to know that there really are no tiers. It's a monthly pledge that's a donation. Could be $1, $5, $10, whatever you want to give that supports the continuation of this work. So thank you to all my patrons. You guys are the best. I love you so much. And for any of you who are thinking of joining us, come on in. Okay, so I wanted to give a little bit of an energy update on what what's been going on in my life, but also what I've been sensing sort of collectively. There's been a lot of rapid pivoting happening collectively, and it's taken a moment for me to kind of step away from those pivots and then look at them through the eyes of energy and not through the eyes of my own personal entanglement. I think that's really important when you are doing, an assessment of energy. If you're someone who is an energy worker or a psychic or does energetic impressions, that you recognize that you have the human component of who you are that has an opinion and a perspective and a way of looking at the world. And then you have the part of you that reads energy, that is not biased, that is very much neutral. It's just reading energy imprints. And so you read them, you collect them, and then you report on them, in my case. And so I've had to really take a step back and get really quiet. This particular pregnancy has brought a lot of introspection into my life, which I'm really grateful for, because it's been a long time since I've been this quiet and this still and this attentive to what's happening in my internal environment. And one of the side effect gifts of that has been the ability to really kind of look at what's happening politically, globally, energetically, and decide for myself what is the main imprint that I'm receiving. So the world as we know it from a third dimensional standpoint is becoming increasingly more chaotic and nonsensical. In the United States, where I am, we are headed into an election in just a few short weeks, and it is just pure chaos. Either parties, we have two primary parties in our country, are just at each other's throats savagely. And there's a lot of people in high positions, politicians, and different roles of leadership who are pointing fingers at each other and wanting to take each other down through these really devious methods. And then at the same time, you have in the background our judicial system, which is our court, our attorney general, the Supreme Court, currently declassifying massive amounts of documents that up until this moment in time have remained locked up and we as the public did not have access to. And an example of that was the recently declassified Hillary Clinton emails, which I just shared today in my Patreon. Thousands of emails went public, and that came after a request from our president to declassify them and not have any redactions. Redactions are those black boxes that you usually find on declassified documents covering certain portions of information so that the public doesn't know the entire story, or it leaves out certain names or certain dates or certain locations. But he called for a complete declass with no redactions, and that just happened. He called for that about a week ago, and today it dropped. So that is happening, and there's a lot of indictments that are going live, being unsealed and happening. A lot of Senate hearings to question certain previous, members of the FBI, of the CIA, different people who were in seats of power in this nation. So, there's that kind of the political struggle happening because of this upcoming election for the seat of leader of this country. And in the background, there's all of these judicial things happening with a lot of criminal activity being sort of publicly thrown out for everybody to see, which is something that as quote unquote conspiracy theorists, we've been talking about for a long time. And nobody really took us seriously. And now, these indictments are happening and these Senate hearings are happening, and people who are paying attention are like, wait a second, what? There was a coup on the president? What? Like, his impeachment was fake? This whole Russian collusion thing was made up? And they're like shocked. They're floored. But it's true. It was made up, and it was a coup on the president. So whether you like him, don't like him, whatever, that's what it was. And something like that has never happened in this country before that we know. So it's a really big deal, because what's happening is we are unearthing a level of corruption at the highest levels of organization in our country that has never been seen. It's never been made public. Maybe it's been there for a long time, but it's never been aired the way that it's being aired now. And that is massive. I mean, that really is history-altering information. And it's a really big deal. And so that's happening. And what I am receiving from an energetic imprint from all of that is this is a massive dismantling. It's a massive dismantling, and it's a massive unveiling of all of the deception that has existed for decades upon decades upon decades, not only in this country, but globally, of different foundations and organizations that have, covered themselves up in these pretty names and made it seem to the public like they were doing good work. And then on the back end, they're, trafficking children or running slush funds and illegal money laundering and all of these things that we did not know up until this moment in time. So there is a massive dismantling of the system. And I think that for a while that made me very nervous, and it created a lot of anxiety, because I was like, where is this all going? Like, I can see the direction it's going, but where is it going? And now I no longer feel that. I now feel that there was a pivot very recently where I feel a very strong stabilization in the future track of not just this country, but in general globally, where that world of deception and of moving forward by way of deceiving others is no longer going to be supported. And I've said this for a long time. Like, for years, I've been saying that we were moving away from the world of competition into a world of cooperation. And that very much is happening as I sit here and talk to you guys. That's exactly what's happening. The dismantling of the world of competition, the world of dog eat dog, the world of hierarchy, the world of, one leader and, only certain people making decisions. And we're moving into a space of cooperation and collaboration, taking a front and center role in the way that the world is organized and the way that the world is run. So I no longer feel that. I actually feel, very at peace in my particular circle in the world. And the practices I'm actively doing is I'm, of course, remaining informed and, open-minded, but I am making sure that whatever space I occupy in my day-to-day when I'm out in public and I'm relating to other individuals is a space that is supportive and feels uplifting, because so many people are just reacting to what they're being shown, and they're unaware that the mainstream media is actually feeding them a lot of fear and a lot of deception. They don't know that. They trust what they see. And so it's creating a lot of hostility and a lot of edginess in the world around us. And I think those of us, and those of you listening to this podcast, are part of a community of people who are probably more aware. You're more woke in some sense when it comes to the greater agenda. So it's up to us to really tread carefully and gingerly around our communities. And, as much as I like to yell truth at people, and as much as I like to tell them, can't you see, open your eyes, that kind of energy can be really hostile for them and really alarming, because they don't understand, because a lot of them are being even presented with counter information for the first time. So, this isn't a brand new concept, and I've talked about this before, but it's incredibly important that we are mindful of how we're treating other people, how we're sharing information that we think is illuminating, so we don't come off as being condescending or hurtful or dismissive of other people's thoughts or opinions. I will say that for me, I have found myself really clicking into this fifth dimensional frequency almost by accident. And I want to sort of give the credit to the pregnancy, because part of what happened when I became pregnant was I felt so unwell. I had to stop doing a lot of the activities that I was doing. And I'm a hard worker. I like to hustle. I like to grind. I like to work a lot and do a lot of things. But I couldn't do that. It was an unsustainable energy model for me being pregnant. I was exhausted and I was sick. And so it made me take a back seat and calm down and slow down and step way more into this very feminine frequency of relaxation and receptivity, which is very fifth dimensional. This is actually how the fifth dimension feels. It's very collaborative, it's very cooperative, but it's a much slower frequency as far as like that energy of like having to work super, super hard or hustle super hard is way slower. It's not like you're not showing up and you're not doing the work, but it doesn't have the same frenetic vibration. So this has allowed me to really step into that and feel that in my body in a whole new way. And what's really astounding about that is that so many manifestations of abundance have happened in my life since doing that. Like large sums of money, we got a new car, we just bunch of different things. We repaired our whole AC system. Like a lot of things have happened that would have been intimidating to me in the past. So now it's just happening, and it's happening with ease, and it's flowing. And to me, this is fifth dimensional energy. This is what it has to offer us. It's an easier way to exist in our reality that feels like flow and feels like everything just coming together and working out perfectly for us. It feels like being supported. It feels like, stepping into the truth of who we are. It feels like illumination, which is a word that came to me during this 21-day meditation group that I'm currently hosting. One of the meditations, that word came in so strongly, illuminated, that for me to really hold on to, what makes me feel illuminated. And so I'm going to ask you that same question, like what brings illumination into your life? And are you giving that attention? Because right now those things are the things that are going to sustain you during this transition and help you move into that frequency and connect with that way of being and living in the world, which is quite different than what we're used to in this third, lower fourth kind of dimensional reality. So this is my message for all of you. I haven't been doing a lot of channeling work. Again, I've been doing a lot of sleeping and a lot of resting, but I'm taking some time to sit and channel and connect with the galactic consciousness that I channel and just hear from the council and hear what they have to say. And, they did step in during one of my meditations to congratulate me on my pregnancy, and they were humored by how surprised I was. They seemed kind of like they already knew, like it was old news. So I imagine there's very good story behind that, but they did step in briefly to celebrate me for that. But I haven't really, heard a lot about the collective. So I am intending to set some time aside and do a little bit of channeling work and then report that back. Not as a podcast episode, just as an audio recording that I would be sharing into that Patreon. So I hope that this was soothing, helpful, that it helped you reflect and it helped you realign with what's important to you. And as always, if you guys have any questions at all about anything that you hear, if you're on Patreon, for sure, we're having the conversation. You comment below and I'm first to answer in there. You can always shoot me an email as well if you're listening to this on my site, shakti@shaktirrios.com. And I just want to put in here a real quick announcement that I do have 2 upcoming groups that are health focused. If you'd like to join us, one of them is to teach you how to run, and it's a combination of weight training and running. And it's a 30-day program, which I will not be doing myself, only because running feels really uncomfortable right now. But I have a lot of people really excited about it, and I know it's going to be a phenomenal program. So if you're interested in that, let me know. And then the other one is for anybody who is expecting or is in their 1st to 2nd year postpartum and wants to get their body, feeling strong, feeling energized, and kind of reconnecting, or who wants to have a really healthy pregnancy and a strong delivery experience. I'm going to have a group just for you. So those are my quick announcements, and I look forward to chatting with each and every one of you. Have an amazing rest of your day.